Hey guys, I have another video on the bump stock ban. Another update. I'm here doing some paperwork on a Sunday evening, and I don't normally like doing videos on Sundays, but hey, getting this news to you guys is important to me, and I want to make sure anyone that owns a bump stock is not gonna, get themselves in trouble or whatever. So, thought it was worth taking some time out of my Sunday evening just to share this new update with you guys. Now, I just got an email within the last hour from Firearms Policy Foundation, and it says right on the top, important alert, please read and share. And I'm going to leave the link to this in the description of this video so you guys can read it thoroughly and share it with all your friends, right? So basically, real quick backtrack. If you remember, the Circuit Court of Appeals had basically denied the bump stock, all the appeals and all that. They had affirmed the lower courts and said, look, we're going to keep banning it, and we'll give you guys 2 more days of a stay for all of the people who were part of that stay, meaning, Firearms Policy Foundation members, the actual plaintiffs themselves, etc. Well, fast forward on Friday, which I touched on this in my stream, the Supreme Court turned down the appeal to grant a stay of the circuit's decision, the Circuit Court of Appeals in D.C. So what that meant was the 2-day appeal that the Circuit Court had granted on the 3rd had now run out. And it appears that over the weekend here, maybe there was no longer any stay, which you could look at a stay like a grace period or holding back on the enforcement of the law. So it was kind of a gray area this weekend where a lot of people were worried that people that still own their bump stocks might already be in possession of a felonious item. Or you could be charged with a felony is the more proper way to word it. Because remember, you're not guilty of anything in this country until you're convicted guilty. But let's just say you could be charged with a felony. Well, got some clarification today from Firearms Policy Foundation. It basically says this. On Friday, the Supreme Court denied our legal team's request for a stay, example, postponement, of the ATF's final rule reclassifying bump stock type devices as illegal machine guns, while we continue to litigate the various claims we raised in our lawsuit and in the other consolidated cases. The D.C. Circuit subsequently ordered the following. So this was after the Supreme Court had denied it. So this is, from here on out, this is new information after my stream on Friday, guys. This gets confusing because there's been a lot and it's been moving really fast. But the newest order we have is per Curiam Order 178-1463, filed that based on government's representation that it will not enforce the bump stock rule against the named plaintiffs or their bona fide members before 5 p.m. on Wednesday, April 10th, 2019, the emergency joint motion to extend stay order 178-1365-2 be denied and the administrative stay be entered on March 23rd and clarified on March 25th be dissolved. The clerk is directed to issue the mandate forthwith before Judges Henderson, Srinivasan, and Millett. And then right afterwards it says the government, DOJ ATF, has agreed to allow the plaintiffs in Geddes et al. Versus BATFE et al. And the organizational plaintiffs, i.e. Firearms Policy Foundation, Florida Carry Inc., and Madison Society Foundation Inc., bodify members, as well as the individuals in the consolidated Codrea et al. Action, to come into compliance with the new final rule by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, April 10th. The government also represented that it will, quote, also retain the bump stocks that are provided to them in compliance efforts until our legal action is completely concluded. So, as I always have to say, guys, I'm not a lawyer. I can't give you legal advice, and I would never try. But as reported by the Firearms Policy Coalition, it's my opinion and commentary that they're basically saying that, look, even though the Supreme Court shot it down and was unwilling to grant a stay to the bona fide plaintiffs, that they are now, the DOJ and ATF has agreed to allow people that still would have bump stocks to comply with it, which is to destroy it or turn it in, as we already know, by Wednesday, April 10th at 5 p.m. So the good news is, by my reading of this, is you're not in possession of an illegal item yet. You still have, about 2.5 days left to turn it in or destroy it. Friday's Supreme Court decision to deny the stay we requested was disappointing but not entirely unexpected. But importantly, there is much litigation left before the cases are disposed of. Our current team is currently working on a petition for an en banc rehearing by the full D.C. Circuit, because if you remember before, it was only a 3-judge panel. So now they're going to have the whole court look at it. And then it says our team is currently, we are prepared, if need be, to petition the U.S. Supreme Court for a writ of certiorari, in other words, review. Now, and then it concludes by saying, we maintain the government's new rule is unconstitutional and unlawful. We will continue to aggressively litigate this case and work to defend American gun owners from this unlawful ban mandated by President Trump. Updates will continue to be posted to our bumpstockcase.com webpage. And I've definitely told you guys about that quite a few times. So, based on what we're looking at here is you probably still have a few days here left, a couple days. You know, the 10th at 5 p.m. as of right now. Now, things could still change from now till then. Maybe they'll be able to get an en banc hearing to hear this and overturn this law from now till then. I'm hopeful of that, but I don't expect that to happen. We have to be realistic here. So you guys have a couple more days to make your final decision on what you want to do, or if you want to do anything at all. And like I said before, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not law enforcement. I can't give you guys advice on what to do. I'm just trying to report to you as much information as I can, as accurately as possible. Please never construe any of my videos as me saying that I personally want you to destroy your bump stock, or that I want you to turn it in. My opinions are irrelevant, guys. I'm just trying to literally put forth what's going on. So, no, I'm not going to tell you to keep it and commit a crime. Of course not. But I'm not going to tell you to turn it in either. Most of you are adults, and if you're an adult and own this, you make the decision for yourself. And if you own a bump stock and you're not an adult, talk to your parents. Retain your own legal counsel. So please, please, please don't ever think that I want you to turn these in, okay? But I'm not qualified to give you my opinion on it, so I'm just not gonna. Now, I will tell you my opinion is that the ban in and itself is unconstitutional. I think the Chevron deference is a complete load of BS. And I think the Supreme Court missed a very good chance to not only stand up for the Second Amendment, but to knock some of the precedents down on this Chevron deference, which in layman's terms, and a legal scholar will probably pick me apart, but just to summarize, Chevron deference is basically saying that these appeals courts and these courts, that they have to weigh in on the regulation part of a law with just as much, if not more, authority than what the law itself says, if the law is considered ambiguous. Now, I don't think the law was ambiguous at all in the actual National Firearms Act, which was a law that was passed by both chambers of Congress and was signed by a duly elected president. Crappy law. The NFA itself is completely unconstitutional. But with that said, it was an actual law. Now we have the ATF, which has two parts. They're a regulatory branch with a law enforcement arm, right? Well, the regulatory portion of the ATF has now said they thought the definition was ambiguous, and they think that it means this. That's a big problem. This whole Chevron deference is a big problem. Look up the Chevron Supreme Court case and all of its implications. This has far-reaching implications that go way beyond gun rights. But in this case, they were applied to gun rights and to our, the bump stocks and to our Second Amendment. So they basically said, look, we have to look at the regulation as carrying the weight more than just looking at the law itself, which I think is wrong, because since the ATF is part of the executive branch and it is appointed by somebody who's obviously going to have political motivations, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican, because our Republican president is obviously against bump stocks because he's the one that ordered this regulation. I don't really think that much power should be held within the appointed bureaucrats, the people that we can't actually vote on individually like we can our representatives and our senators. So yeah, I do have a huge problem with this bump stock ban on virtually all levels. And I don't want to bore you guys, but just watch my videos. I've given you guys tons of my opinions on this, presented a lot of news on this, and from the get-go, I've been very consistent that I think it's a complete load of BS. It's a very slippery slope. It's going to make it to where this regulation can very easily ban many, many other things, and I believe it has very little to do with the bump stock in and of itself, like the piece of plastic bump stock, as much as it does like they're trying to test the waters and see how easily they're able to roll over something that not as many people care about and give them that little bit more momentum that they can take things that we do care about. And don't forget, this is now all establishing more precedents, Remember how I started off this whole bump stock thing way before the courts heard it? And I said this is going to establish precedents on top of precedents on top of precedents. Well, guess what? They've been stacking it for years against us, and we just had one more. We just had the Supreme Court look at it. As of now, I get it. They can still overturn it. But as of now, the Supreme Court, that's one more precedent that all the lower courts are bound by. That, yes, we will allow you to still use the Chevron deference when it comes to, arguments in court. And when I use argument, I mean it in the legal sense. Court arguments that the law intended this and the regulation says something different. Chevron deference says, yes, the reinterpretation of the regulatory agency does have weight, and that's what you should look at. So just remember what's really going on here, guys. It's not good. So that's the deal. I encourage you guys to go look at the link in the description. It's going to take you to this, letter that I printed off here. This letter has my name on it, and that's what's nice about being a member of FPF. They send you regular updates, so that's a good thing. You stay in the know. And then I will say this. I'm not going to talk about this too much because, as I said earlier, I'm not qualified to give you advice on whether you turn it in or not. Doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to me. Don't get me wrong on a personal level, but that's just not my role in life. I can't give you guys legal advice, okay? I think you guys could guess what I'd like you to do personally, but again, my opinion's just not relevant to your choices of your legal decisions you make. But if you do feel you need to turn it in, and their lawyer's basically telling you that they have to err on the side of caution here, and say, well, here's what we suggest that you would do. And he's basically saying, I'll say this real quick, guys. Sorry, the video's going to run a little longer here. This is important. They basically say, look, in abundance of caution, we wanted to make sure you are aware of how the final rule could affect owners of affected devices. As set forth in the final rule, 83 Fed Reg 66530, and according to the ATF, the bump stock devices owners' options are. And it says you can destroy it or surrender it. They tell you how to do it. But they are suggesting that if you do turn it in, that you should turn it in under protest. And they're telling you ways to do that, right? And they are even giving you a sample form letter, okay? And this is all going to be in the link in the description. A form letter of how you could write a protest letter. And there's certain legal reasons why you might want to do this. Again, not a lawyer. I can't understand this any more than you guys can. But it looks like it's possible that if the rule ever gets enjoined later, or a permanent injunction, that you might be able to get some compensation if you did turn it in. And it also looks like to me that the ATF may be actually holding these devices so that if ever overturned, there's a chance you might get them back. Read this article for yourself and decide, but I believe that's what it says. So if you do feel you need to turn it in for whatever reason, there's smarter ways you could possibly turn it in if you get to that point, and that's all in this article. So I think it's worth you guys reading this if you own a bump stock. And if you don't own a bump stock, I think there's still a lot of important information in this video that I hope you guys watch, because guarantee you, if you don't own a bump stock and never have, there's things you do own or you do have that you're going to want to keep, and this could be a very slippery slope. And I would argue there's a lot of verbiage in the quote bump stock ban that addresses a lot more the bump stocks themselves. All right, guys. Still keeping up on this case. I don't think it's going to be the last time I talk about it, but this is the one issue I've chose to focus on. So if you're interested in it, great. If you're bored with me, guys, sorry. I'm trying to mix up my videos with other non-bump stock stuff, but I'll tell you, I'm going to keep on this till it's totally done, because this issue is very important to me, and the Second Amendment's very important. And if I can just help one or two people know what's going on, pass it on to your friends, and before you know it, 100 people could know. So all right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. You guys have a good one.